Dean Hildebrandt is a respected insurance executive and industry leader with deep experience in independent brokerage growth and global collaboration networks. He has played a key role within Assurex Global, one of the world's largest privately held commercial insurance, risk management, and employee benefits brokerage groups. Assurex Global connects top independent agencies across the world, enabling shared expertise, international reach, and collective buying power while preserving local ownership and culture. Dean's work focuses on strategic growth, network alignment, leadership development, and helping independent brokers compete at the highest levels without sacrificing independence. He is widely recognized for his perspective on governance, long-term thinking, and the disciplined decision-making required to scale without losing identity. Welcome, Dr. Dean Hildebrandt.
Welcome. Easy on the doctor part of it. Thank you, Jason. Thanks, Guff.
That's awesome. Well, we have a tradition. We usually ask 2 or 3 questions, and one is we put everything we have that's out on the web in ChatGPT, and it gives us 2 walk-up songs, and then we let our guest choose which one would be theirs, okay? And what came out was Journey, Don't Stop Believing, great song, and Eminem, Lose Yourself. So which one would you choose, Dean?
I'd have to go with Journey.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. It's Journey. But Eminem's strong.
Yeah, Eminem's good. Well,
Yeah.
good.
Yep.
So, Dean, we started a tradition here on the pod, and we always ask our guests what's the first thing they think about when they wake up in the morning. And by the way, before you answer that, it's from Chris Carter.
Oh, wonderful.
So
Yeah, awesome.
we had an offline conversation, and it just something clicked, and
Yeah.
so that's where that comes from.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Chris is awesome, so I know exactly what you're talking about there. Reality, more often than I would care to admit, the first thing I think about is, where am I again? Because I travel 50 weeks a year. So
50 weeks a year.
50 weeks a year.
And
I'm
it's
on
been
an
that
airplane.
way for...
Certainly the last 3 years.
Okay.
And you know, over 30 countries each of the last 3 years. So I find myself in a lot of different hotels in different cities, and frequently one of the first things is, where am I again? Followed by, and when I just know right away, for me, and you know this, Jason, when I wake up, it's always, let's go, bring it. It's time to go.
Let the
And
intensity
I
begin.
literally wake up that way. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you shared with us a story a couple years ago in training. It was about yesterday's solutions are today's problems. And I'm going to read this story that I think is fascinating, and then I want you to respond to it. How ancient constraints quietly shape modern outcomes. The space shuttle's solid rocket boosters were manufactured in Utah. Sound familiar? Because of their size and material, they had to be transported by train. That meant the boosters had to fit through existing road tunnels. Those tunnels were built to accommodate standard rail gauge. Rail gauge followed wagon spacing from hundreds of years prior. Wagon spacing followed road ruts. Road ruts followed Roman roads. Roman roads followed the width of Roman chariots, designed for 2 horses.
Correct.
Right? So when I read that, we deal with a lot of decision makers, a lot of business owners, a lot of people that have to make a lot of tough decisions. A lot of times they have to break an existing relationship. Sometimes that relationship is good, and when it's not good, it makes our job really easy. But when I read that, what do you think? What comes to mind? Why did you tell us this story? And why do you like it? And why did you remember it?
Yeah, I think I first heard that, Guffey, a long time ago, 12 years ago, 15 years ago. But it always makes me think about the constraints we put around ourselves, right? And sometimes they are constraints that we don't even necessarily control entirely, but they're still constraints that we accept.
Mm-hmm.
And so often in life, and what we've been talking about the last couple of days here within the Mahoney Group is kind of lifting yourself outside of that, understanding beyond that about how you move, certainly within an economy and within a business structure, but move beyond some of the constraints that the world has placed upon us. And, the modern insurance industry really started in its modern form somewhere in the 1600s.
Mm-hmm.
So my simple country math says that's pretty old. And so I think there are constraints within our industry and within our business environment that there are times you just have to step back and say, well, that's a constraint that is there that I shouldn't deal with anymore. I should look at a different way to solve that problem. And sometimes that's different risk transfer mechanisms for a consumer. Sometimes it's different service models to a consumer. But for me, that story just brings back, gosh, there's times I'm dealing with a constraint that just doesn't make sense in today's world.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be a different way to get to it. So for me, it's just one of those triggers to say, think about the world differently. What if I didn't have to deal with that constraint? Think about the world differently.
Mm-hmm.
When someone evolves past that, like solves a new solution, there seems to be inevitably this freezing and then unfreezing. Like, how do you, once you solve that problem, right, you've got to widen these, make it wider, right, to fit the parts necessary for the space shuttle. But so, how do people? I guess two-part question, Dean. People and organizations, they solve that problem, but then they tend to freeze back up. Like kind of that freezing and unfreezing momentum. How do you escalate through, or a favorite term from Guffey, velocity through, or generate velocity through the to keep things unfrozen?
Yeah, well, I mean, the goal, right, is to unfreeze, change positions, and then freeze anew at some better state. And frequently the unfreeze is the hardest part of that. Hardest part because you're tethered by so many things to the current environment, whether it's your incumbent relationship, like you talked about, Guffey, or an incumbent market, or whatever that tether is to the frozen scenario that exists. And I like to think about it just in kind of algebra terms. The future state, right? The future state that you envision, that's got to be better than, it's got to be greater than current state plus cost of change. And it's not true cost of change, but perceived cost of change. So if you're thinking about that, whether you're an individual looking at a change you're going to make, or a business or whatever, that future state has got to be greater than my current state plus my perceived cost of change. And then when that exists, then I'm going to be willing to make the change. But without that calculus that's going on, that is what's going on in people's heads, whether they know it or not, that is what's happening. And without that, you're not going to make a change. So getting unfrozen, shifting it, and then refreezing at this new state, that's the key. I think accelerating through it is really all about understanding the equation, and then understanding the human emotion that goes into the perception piece of cost of change.
Human emotion of change. Because you said, we talked about stagnation a lot this week.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about is perception in your brain, but there's also, you can feel that too over time. You just maybe can't identify kind of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do we truly identify if we're stagnant? Is it the same principles in all aspects of your life, or is it work, life, relationships? Is it a constant? You got to constantly be gaining that momentum in every aspect, or does one way just permeate throughout them all?
Well, and Guffey, you and I've talked a lot about this. I mean, I think there's intentionality in all things in life, and I think there are times when you probably don't want to confuse stagnation with just being in a good place.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, you've been with Mahoney for a few years. I don't think that's because you're stagnant. I think it's because you're in a really good place and you can continue to grow as a human being and do what you want to do within the Mahoney Group.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a difference between being stagnant and just being in a good place.
Yeah, that's a great distinction.
Now, I'm a big fan of understanding and being intentional about all aspects of life, where you're at physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I think all of those things work together. I don't think you can let one just go and not care about it and not have it impact the rest of who you are as a human being. I think we are whole human beings, and you need to be intentional about all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But being in a good place in one of them doesn't necessarily mean you're stagnant in that place, right? I've been connected with Assurex for almost 20 years now, CEO for the last 6, but I've been connected with this organization as a partner, as a board member, and now as CEO for 20 years. I don't think I'm stagnant, but I think I'm in a good place.
Yeah.
What do you think, Dean, when people make that move, what forces regression back to the mean? Right? I'm always fascinated by that behavior.
Tell me more.
Well, like you asked me yesterday, Guffey, like I wake up talking, gratitude is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
That's a starter for me for my day. And oftentimes lately, one of my gratitudes is I'm so happy that I'm willing to investigate improving myself. Like I've taken joy in that.
Yeah.
And so like I work really hard at not regressing back to a behavior or a mean that is either harmful or unproductive or whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Right. But what is it that I'm always trying to figure out what forces people to regress back to the status quo or an old behavior pattern, or you're talking about deepening your why a lot, right, Rick? Like Guff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that I'm just curious in your perspective.
Yeah,
on that.
And Jason, I've not done academic research on that, so I don't know that I would necessarily know that. What I think about that, though, what it makes me think about is that whole concept of intentionality. As soon as we lose intentionality, I think we just as human beings have a tendency to find comfort and find normal. One of the hallmarks of human beings is we try to seek normal, whatever we know as normal, right? And your normal might be different than my normal, but we seek normal, so we seek comfort, we regress back to the mean without intentionality. But as soon as we have intentionality about what we're trying to accomplish, I think it's easy to stay focused on a goal. It's easy to stay focused on growth. But if we lose that intentionality, just as human beings, a lot of times I think we regress to what we know as normal.
Yeah, like we ask our guests, what's the first thing you think about when you wake up in the morning? But I wonder if you, at the end of the day, was like, what did I intend to do today?
Yeah.
And did that occur?
Yeah, it was interesting. Nick was talking about his Sundays, right?
Yeah.
And you guys know this. My Sunday night is absolutely work for me, and that is my prep for my week. And so for me, that is the night to prep and really drive my intentionality for the week in a lot of aspects of my life. And then for me, Friday is the day that I really self-assess and say, did I accomplish what I wanted to accomplish this week? And then you stretch that out, in terms of a month and a quarter and a year and more long term in nature. But yeah, I think there's absolutely those triggers that say, here's the time I'm going to spend making sure I have my plan, and then I'm going to execute my plan, and then I'm going to go back and measure, did I do what I said I wanted to do? And I think it's so easy to step away from that. And as soon as we step away from that intentionality, human nature takes over and we kind of all regress back to just
Well,
what
it feels good.
Yeah, it feels good. And then we get stagnant, and then, that's
got to reassess.
Yeah.
So you're here this week celebrating with us our sales summit.
Yeah.
You made a comment that I want to talk to you about. And then, Jason, maybe you can ask him about pocket vetoes. You said your parents gave you two things: unconditional love and a belief that anything's possible. How old were you when you realized that's what they had given you?
Probably last week. No, as a kid, I didn't realize that, certainly. And I would say probably as a young adult, I'm not sure I really realized that. But, in recent years, my dad's had some health issues, some pretty serious health issues. And it's prompted me to step back and really think about, the blessing that he's been in my life. And we grew up in a very rural area, in a very modest area, and yet I always knew I was loved, and I always believed that the sky was the limit, that I could do anything, and they infused that in me. Humans aren't born that way. Jamil was saying today we're born with two fears, but I'm not sure what beliefs we have when we're born. I mean, our environment plays a big role in that. So the two things that my parents really gave me was this safety net of unconditional love, and that's what it is, a safety net. And when you feel safe, you can really go try a lot of things. And then when you have this belief that, gosh, anything's possible, now I'm going to go try new things, and I actually believe I can accomplish some things. So, I don't think sincerely, Guffey, I don't think I've fully internalized that until the last few years, really. Mm-hmm. And then, it's kind of like the movie plays in your head, and you realize all those different times when, I think I was a CEO for the first time when I was 28 years old or 29 years old. And I think, what kind of fool at 29 years old thinks they can be a CEO of anything? Mm-hmm. And yet I really thought I could. And that absolutely comes from the foundation that my parents built for me. No doubt about it. And by the way, I was wildly inequipped and wildly unqualified at the time, but had partners that gave me an opportunity and parents that infused in me a belief that it was possible.
Well, the unconditional love piece, I know that's part of your dissertation.
Yes, it is. Big part.
Yeah, not just a part, a big part. But you did mention to me yesterday, which I thought was super cool. You said, yeah, I would change a couple things now from it. And I just thought that's real, like that's growth. That means that no matter what you did, no matter what your life's work is, no matter what, you better hope that in 5 years you look back, not cringe, but you go, I'd have done that a little differently.
Absolutely. Yeah. And isn't that a great feeling? Isn't that a great blessing that what that means is that there's been additional growth since then, that wasn't the end of the book, right? It might have been the end of a chapter,
yeah,
but it wasn't the end of the book. And so, yeah, I mean, I will, that too, Guffey, I'll be forever grateful for the time serving in homeless shelters and learning from people in those homeless shelters. And I learned more than I could ever give to them. But everything I learned there and then was able to write about and bring into who I am as a human being, I've continued to learn, and there's things that I would change both about my dissertation and just about how I engage the world. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because part of that I think is permeated through our organization. And that has been, Guffey mentioned no pocket vetoes, but also assume positive intent, because it's created a place to be vulnerable and safe. And for that vulnerability and safety, there's so many great things that come from that. And so where did that come from, Dean? Because it's definitely filled our cups here at the Mahoney Group for sure.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that, Jason, that just over years of I led my first kind of business, if you will, when I was 12 years old. So I started my first business when I was 12 and have led people ever since. So I've always been a team leader or the leader of an organization since I was 12 years old. So, so I kind of made every mistake possible. And then when there were no other options, I did the right thing. Then I figured out how to do it right. But I tried everything else first. But eventually you get to some things that work. And, the concept of believing positive intent, that doesn't work everywhere. I think it is a framework and a mindset that leads to a much happier, healthier life. I absolutely believe that. What made it so true with Mahoney, though, was I had the pleasure of knowing each of the board members and the major owners. I knew you all personally. So I knew what you were about. So I knew that when actions were taken and decisions were made, I knew there was positive intent because I know you guys. I know what you're about. So it was easy to kind of teach that as a concept with this group that, hey, believe positive intent, because I guarantee you, Brad and David and Bob, I guarantee you they have positive intent. They want good things for individuals and organizations. So that was an easy concept to talk through with this group because I fundamentally knew it was true, that the positive intent was there. Doesn't mean you don't have disagreements or difficult conversations at times, because that happens. That's part of life. But as I said, from the stage yesterday, one of the big difference makers for Mahoney is that not only do you have access to all the tools and resources, everything any broker could ever want, Mahoney has access to. Then it's led by a leadership team and an ownership group that truly have selfless love, that truly will give of themselves, give of their own time, talent, and resources, give up money for the greater good of the organization. That doesn't happen that often, but I've seen it happen repeatedly with the leaders of the Mahoney Group, including you. Then you put on top of that the why, that if it doesn't make you cry, you need a better why, right?
Why sucks.
Yeah. But the why here matters, right? It's important. So you go through those three things, and again, the question, believe positive intent, because there is positive intent. Every day, everybody should believe positive intent because that's what exists here. Not everywhere, but it does exist here.
I even think about it both, professionally, obviously, but personally. It just takes off so much.
It's a better way to live.
Absolutely.
It's just like tension-free.
Absolutely.
It's just a really warm environment.
Well, tell us about your work and relationship with Brad Rucker, our CEO. He's obviously a dear friend of mine and mentor and someone I care deeply about. But you've mentored him and worked with him and seen growth and seen Brad. So
I'll double down on that.
Yeah.
Tell
us about Brad Rucker, our CEO.
Yeah, Brad.
He's listening.
Brad and I probably became friends, I don't know, 6 or 8 years ago, whatever it was. But Brad was on a journey of growth, right? He wanted to grow several aspects of his life where he wanted to go and what he wanted to do. He had seen some of the path that I had been down and I think just said, hey, steer me clear of a couple of rocks. And there's a lot of people that will give voice to that and say, hey, I want to grow as a human being, and I want to grow in my capacity to lead people, and I want to grow in my capacity to lead a business. There aren't that many that are willing to do the work that it takes to do that, including the hardest work, which is getting up in the morning and looking in the mirror and saying, I am a flawed human being. Why do I do what I do? How do I do what I do? And how can I get better at it? But Brad's an absolute stud. I mean, he's continually seeking how to get better. And I don't think, I'm trying to think here for a minute, but I don't think I've ever heard him say, how can I get better because I want to make more money, or can I get better? I mean, everything he's trying to do, well, we have a really similar why, right? I mean, he and I have talked about this a lot. The goal is to impact lives in a positive way. And in some cases, they're going to be lives that you never know you touched. But if you are effective at leading a business well, and that's where Brad's head is at, he wants to lead a business well that he knows will impact people in an incredibly positive way for many years to come. And it's not about his benefit or his gain from it. He's doing it truly because he wants to give back to the world. And I love that about Brad.
Yeah, me too. All right, pocket vetoes, something that you taught our board and something I'm very interested in because I think it messes with an organization in a major way. It misaligns, but it's the silent. You don't discover it till it's too late sometimes. Talk to us about what is a pocket veto? Where did you come up with it? It's typically a political term, but tell us what a pocket veto is, and you're smiling a little bit because you got probably a lot going on in that brain.
Well, I can still remember when I started thinking about that conceptually, and won't go into that story, but yeah, I mean, in boards and in groups of people, right, frequently you can have silent dissent, and within a leadership team, within a board, it's deadly. It absolutely kills. And pocket veto is simply being in the boardroom, being at the table for the decision, and rather than raising your issue and raising dissent and kind of being afraid to offend or afraid to cause debate, you stay silent, don't say anything in the boardroom, and then leave the boardroom and tell people, well, yeah, I didn't agree with that decision. And for leadership of businesses, for boardrooms, that's absolutely deadly. It kills team morale. And what you do when that happens is you're telling the rest of the organization that it's okay, and in some ways it's better to be a silent dissenter than actually raise your issue. And the only way for organizations to be great, the only way for teams to be great, is when everyone's fully contributing, including dissent and differences of opinion. Diversity is a wonderful thing, and diversity of thought is one of the most powerful diversities, right? But if you have silent dissent and people aren't saying what's on their mind, it's deadly for an organization. And so this whole concept of pocket veto and what I was trying to share with the board at the time is, again, I knew you guys, so I knew what you're about, and really smart people, and powered by differences of background, differences of positions in the industry. And I really wanted the board to understand that it could be a great board, but you can't have silent dissent. Raise the issue. If you have a different perspective, different thought on an issue or an idea, raise it, talk about it. The group gets stronger for it. So yeah, the pocket veto can be a really powerful thing, for good and for bad, right? When you can truly eliminate it, your team gets a lot stronger by just eliminating.
And we talked about you don't have to agree, but
Absolutely.
you can validate each other,
Yes,
and strengthen and reinforce and support and align, and that's totally good and okay. They can't be in the room.
When that room is safe.
Yes,
Correct. So it goes both ways,
so,
right? The leader has to create a safe place, and the people that are there have to be able to voice their opinion, or they just can't be in the room.
Yeah, and you know, Brad and I talked about this yesterday a little bit. There are absolutely times when Brad and I'll talk about something, and he'll say, "Hey, I'm thinking about," and I'll be like, "Brad, no, it's a terrible idea." and frequently he'll lay out, well, here's the context, and it's like, oh, okay, well, that might actually be a great idea, right? but having the ability, that safety with a leader to have the discussion, have an open dialogue, it's incredibly powerful. That is where organizations really accelerate, when they can get the full, you talk about vocational energy, about their energy at work. Organizations get great when you have avocational energy, where you have their mowing the lawn on a Saturday, and that's when the great idea comes to them, right?
Yeah, we're talking about that.
That's when you get avocational energy, when you have that safety to be able to share ideas, share thoughts, share feedback, and know that it's not corrosive, that it's gonna yield to better relationships. There's a lot of strength, a lot of power that comes from that.
So we talked about the word corrosive. We are obviously, as you know, we're all privately held organizations. What do you feel like the future of privately held organizations are versus publicly traded organizations versus private PE-backed firms, et cetera? What is your general philosophy around that?
Well, I think, hey, I've been relatively public about this, but I certainly the insurance distribution sector, similar to many sectors, has a variety of different capital models, including publicly traded entities that are very large and substantial. I've got no real issue with any particular capital model, right? I'm agnostic to capital.
Sure.
I don't care. But what I would say is this: anytime you're extracting more value than you're creating, you're a net taker in the world. Forget about capital, forget about anything. If you're extracting more than you're contributing, you're a net taker. And I don't know how you could look at private equity in our industry and believe it's anything other than a net taker. And I've been at the conferences with private equity. I've been at these sponsor meetings, all the stuff. And I've never heard private equity sponsors talk about anything other than their financial return. They never talk about what they can contribute to the industry. They never talk about how they can create a greater relationship with a client, colleague, a carrier, or the community. They only talk about how they can extract value from the industry. And I don't think that's good for anybody. Now, there are some industries, right, where private equity comes in, and it's probably serves a very good purpose. I don't think there's many locally owned filling stations anymore. I think the distribution of gasoline is done by publicly traded and private equity-backed roll-up entities. I don't think it probably hurts anybody. Our industry, though, is a little different. It's really focused on serving end clients, right? Businesses and individuals that need what we can do for them. They need the value that we can deliver to them. And in our industry particularly, private equity has taken a position where they're extracting value, consistently and repeatedly extracting value, rather than investing it back into how we can better serve customers, how we can better serve the communities in which we work. They're simply focused on extracting. And I don't think that's healthy for our industry. I don't think it's healthy for the economy. I don't think it's healthy for end consumers. I believe in giving back, in helping. That's just not where private equity is focused in our industry.
Yeah, you talk about value. We talked about that a lot. I've never heard the net taker from a value standpoint, and that really crystallized it, really, for me, what you just said. How do you talked about agencies that understand and have clarity of the value they can deliver, and when a client sees value or has meaning or sees value, but the agency has clarity of value, what would you tell agency owners to do to implement, to make sure there's clarity across the board for their sales force on the value that they deliver?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to understanding who your desired customer is, who you can best align with to deliver value to them, and when you understand that, you can continually expand that value that you can deliver. And Guffey, that was a painful lesson for me. I was a broker on a pitch one time, and the way our firm was selling is we would go out and leverage a relationship. And I mean that in a positive way, right? I mean, we would try to go meet with people we knew in the community. Sure. And we went out to a large prospect, and we basically wanted to learn about their business. So we learned a lot about their business, and then we kind of gave some examples of how we felt we could serve them. And it was kind of a, hey, we can do anything for you. We have access to everything. We can be anything for you. And we didn't win the account. And we had a great relationship, but we didn't win the account. And I asked the buyer why we didn't win. And the buyer didn't want to tell me why we didn't win. He's a really nice guy, so he just didn't want to tell me. Mm-hmm. But we didn't win. So I called the firm that did win, our direct competitor. I called him and said, hey, what did you do to win that account? And they told me. And what they told me is they went out and they understood the challenges that this particular firm faced. And they built a model that they had used with other customers. So they had a value that they knew they could deliver within that space. And they went out to that prospect and said, here's exactly what we will do for you. And it wasn't about an insurance solution. Actually, the solution was to not insure what they were insuring, but instead transfer the risk contractually. So they delivered value mm-hmm. by not selling insurance.
Yeah.
So it really started that process for me of understanding that what we do sometimes can get framed as we sell insurance, but what we really do is provide a value. What we really do is deliver value. And certainly when you're within an industry or within a specific practice, you can develop consistent, repeatable process system that delivers value to customers. And so when you're creating value for them, it's really not a decision about should I fire my broker and hire Mahoney. It's, gosh, Mahoney's delivering value for me. I need to have a greater connection with Mahoney because they deliver value for me. Mm-hmm. And that's what it becomes about. It doesn't become really about the insurance buying.
Yeah.
It becomes about, hey, I've got a partner here that can deliver value for me. And it was a hard lesson because it was a big account, but a great lesson ultimately because it shifted the way we did business and we grew rapidly because we shifted our business.
Yeah, I had two experiences in the same month when I was new. One, I was a couple $100,000 cheaper in premium, and I didn't win.
Yeah.
And I thought, not only did they not choose me, they didn't like me enough to pay X more, right? But then I thought, no, and then I started thinking about value. But the second one was even more impactful because that was kind of easy to understand. It was like, okay, yeah, I either got used or something happened. The second one, though, I remember I was on a pitch. I was talking to the prospect, and I said, I'm available anytime. You can email me, and I'll respond, and I'll answer your call at 9:00 at night. And I was acting like I'm like some, account manager, which I'm not. And he goes, I appreciate you sharing that, Guffey. I want a broker that's good enough that can do their work during business hours. I'd never want to call you outside of business hours or the weekend or anything.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful for that experience too.
Absolutely.
Because then it gave me confidence. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to take your call at 8 p.m. either. Yeah. So then I'm like, I don't want a type of client that thinks they can reach out to me at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, unless there's an emergency, unless there's something for sure. Yeah. But every time a client calls me, no matter what time of day, I'm happy to receive their call because I genuinely, really, really enjoy these people.
Absolutely.
But if they know I'm out of town, the last thing they want to do is ask me to do anything, right?
And again, it's part of that, Guffey, is understanding the value that you can deliver
Correct.
individually versus the team of Mahoney. Because there's an entire team here that delivers significantly beyond your skill set,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if I need a cert, I'm not saying you're the last guy I would call.
Yeah, I should be the last person. Dave Camarde, maybe, but me and
You're
Dave.
down on the list,
I'm
brother.
down. And that's where I want to be.
Yeah. It's just there's a different point at B. So, I think it's understanding the value you can deliver. And Jason, what you're doing in the world of fiduciary right now, right? I mean, there's a value that you deliver that is way beyond even being a benefits consultant in today's world.
Jason, why don't you talk about that?
The healthcare space and the consumption of care has just created we're at a breaking point, essentially, right? I mean, we're there, and most everyone is dissatisfied with benefits and in the whole system that is benefits and care for the most part. And so functionally what happened was the federal government stepped in and said, hey, we're going to pass this law called the Consolidated Appropriations Act, and now we're going to make all employers fiduciaries. And so most employers still don't recognize really what that means. And slowly what's happening now is the DOL is ratcheting up tighter and tighter and tighter. And now lawsuits are flying, making sure that employers have good governance relative to their decision making. So they're having to establish a prudent process as a fiduciary that is balancing moral obligation versus moral aspiration for the betterment of their employees. And so there's so much fear in that space within our industry because it's requiring transparency. So now we have to tell everybody how much money we make and where we get that money from.
Yeah.
And for me, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I love it.
You've been leading out on this before anybody else. Like, truly well done.
But I mean, I've had some help and some insights.
Hey, just take the compliment.
But I mean, it's just, I think it's really wonderful for our industry, candidly. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of hidden income, be it in the pharmacy benefits management space that advisors and brokerage firms take. There's PBM consortiums, there's overrides, there's contingencies, there's all types of income that flows around benefits. And employees at all of our companies are paying for, and I say all, meaning the royal we of the U.S., are paying for that income that nobody knows about. And so it's changing decision making. And it's also creating a wonderful opportunity to revisit the status quo.
Which you love.
Which I love. Because you have to be fearful or fearless. There's got to be some fearlessness attached to EB.
Yeah. Right?
You can't live in that emotional purgatory, as we talked about earlier.
But again, I think it's understanding the value that you can deliver. And to Guffey's point, the concept of fiduciary isn't new to business owners because we've dealt with it in the 401k space for many years. The application of that conceptually into employee benefits, to Guffey's point, you've been a leader nationally on that movement, and that's a value that you personally and Mahoney Group's delivering that most just aren't quite there yet. But it's critical because, again, what the client values, right? What the client values is that the business is being done right, and they're paying what they think they're paying, right?
Yeah.
That there's a transparency around compensation, that there's a transparency around what that equation looks like. And in many scenarios today, that's not quite true.
Which I love it. I really do. Because it's long overdue.
Absolutely.
And it's just, you have someone that our entire labor force is paying for it. in one way or another, and it's killing and eating corporate profits. And so
Jason's been excited about this for years. He keeps trying to get me excited about it. I'm like, this is EB regulation stuff. Like, if you like it, I love it. That's great.
Well, people thought I was crazy when I first started talking about it, right? It's just, which I am a little bit, I suppose, but
no, it's been, and our EB division is, just crushing it across all divisions of the Mahoney Group. It's outperforming every single aspect, and a lot of that has to do with you for sure, and the people here for sure.
I appreciate it. But when you hear value, right? I know, what is that? How does that resonate with you, Guff? And how does that speak to you?
Well, value is always in motion. It's not stagnant. I think of like, what's gold worth today? $5,000 an ounce. I don't know what you guys would pay for gold, but I have 5 gold coins that my grandma bought in Austria in the 50s that my dad bought for my grandma 20 years ago. And I went to my mom's house after my dad passed and said, I don't care what anybody's getting. I need to buy this from you right now. So I bought some gold. Well, those are the last thing I'd give up to feed my family.
Yeah.
So what's the value of that?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So value to me is in motion. What's frustrating as a broker that I have felt over the years, and now I feel better about it now, is when value is clear, why do deals stall? And I've been fascinated with that question. And a lot of it has to do with clarity, safety, reinforcement, alignment.
Yeah.
All those words that aren't just words. There's some massive human psychology attached to those. But so yeah, Jason, what value is to me is value is always in motion. And you need to be really careful about what you value, because I know this from experience. I have overvalued the wrong things. I have undervalued the wrong things. And so when I'm out of whack or something is not right, it's typically because value's distorted with me. And so, and if it's distorted with you, it's really hard to deliver that value to clients. Anyways, I know I kind of went off there, but
conceptually though, it's such an interesting thing, right? Because I think about I've got a neighbor at home that he's a big watch guy, right? So he's got a number of watches that are big name, Rolex and Tag and big name watches, and he loves wearing them, and it's really cool. And he places a really high value on the watch he has on his wrist. I generally don't wear a watch at all. Yeah. And I have one watch that my 2 sons bought for me probably 20 years ago when they were in high school, middle school, something in there. And it's probably economic value, financial value. They maybe paid $200 for it. It might be one of the last physical assets I would ever be willing to part with, right? Has incredible value to me. And I think that in terms of business, right, understanding what a business owner values becomes really core to understanding how you can deliver for them. Because business owners, like all humans, business decision makers, like all humans, have different value points, and making sure that we continue to deliver the value as they perceive it really becomes the key to delivering success in their eyes. That understanding what they value is what allows us to deliver success for them.
If I was a new broker, I would spend a lot of time studying value.
Absolutely.
I would spend a lot of time.
And especially, again, given what Mahoney is in today's environment, really has access to every tool and resource that would be desirable for a business decision maker. And so understanding what your best client, understanding what they perceive as value really is the linchpin to success.
Mm-hmm.
Because the broker has access to everything. So the key is really systemically delivering that value to customers repeatedly. That really becomes the key to success.
Yeah. Well, Dean, I know we only have you for an hour, but man, I could talk to Dean and listen for a long time. So Really appreciate you stopping by. Jason, why don't you?
No, I was going to
finish
say,
it, man?
there's only a handful of people in my life.
Me, who else?
Guffey, Milan. Milan's definitely one for sure.
I'm the only one not that in this room.
No, but like slow me down.
Yeah.
Like when I have conversations with you, with Dean, I talk to him like he's not here, but like it's somehow it just slows me down. Not that I'm just out of control running around, but it's just something like it slows down my process. Like it just brings more clarity and it just slows me down, but yet it makes me accelerate at the same time. It's an interesting dynamic. So I don't know where that comes from. I was telling Milan earlier, I said, Dean's like the Dalai Lama of of leaders. So I just appreciate you, man, and continue to value the relationship and friendship, and you mean a lot to me, both personally and professionally, man. So I'm just grateful that you joined us.
That sentiment is very mutual.
So
That's
thank you.
It's so wonderful when and I think like on the important days of the year, there's a few people you always get the text from saying, "Hey, Merry Christmas" or "Happy New Year," and it's always cool to connect with you on virtually every big day of the year, and it means a lot to me. So,
Dean, we appreciate you. You've done a lot for our organization. Any parting words about the Mahoney Summit? Anything you want to finish off with?
yeah, hey, I'd just share this. My comments at the summit were very heartfelt. I mean, this is a great organization, and certainly the leadership group and the ownership group set the pace and set the tone. And I'm not sure I could be more excited for a group of people than I am for this group right here, right now. And it's been a great week. I love spending time with you guys. You know that. I love being with you. Love you like brothers, and it's so cool to see the journey you're on. It's going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. Well, you're a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.